There's your coon, boys. Laid out on the limb.
Alright, so like we was talking about before, this video is basically going to be about how, if you don't have any older dogs to hunt with, or you just got a puppy, how you go about bonding with that dog, making a connection with that puppy, and then taking them out in the woods and training them. So on the subject of mentors, you know, at this point, well, you probably started hunting a lot solo, but you also had some guys that you trusted to hunt with occasionally, correct?
Right. My buddy Dusty that I lived with, he actually at the time didn't have any coon dogs. He was getting into hog hunting pretty heavy, and you know, I would just kind of talk to him, tell him.
He was a bona fide houndsman. He knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, if there's one thing I can say as far as patience goes with a dog, he is as patient as anybody I know with a dog.
Right.
You know, there's some other buddies of mine that are good houndsmen, but dogs that I'll quit on, or maybe somebody else will quit on, Dusty may take them and, you know, not do anything with them for 6 months.
Right.
And then go to fooling with them and get better results out of them than anybody else that had touched them at that point, you know, up to that point.
Right, right.
But, you know, Chad kind of got that talking to me about coming and hunting with him some. He was another buddy of mine that I grew up with, and he was pretty excited because I'd moved back from Texas. We were getting to hang out more. So I started going to picking some and hunting with him, and he was actually hunting with another guy named Michael Powell that had a really nice English female named Maggie. And, you know, we would hunt maybe a night or two a week together, just depending on what our schedules were. And I didn't worry about hunting Maximus with her because I knew she wasn't ill. She was a solid coon dog. You know, I guess she was a good example of what most people would refer to as a puppy trainer.
Right.
She, you know, I honestly believe there was times that Maximus might be hung up on a track that she would kind of come back and get him to go with her.
Yeah.
And, you know.
And not every older dog is going to be able to do that.
No.
So one thing I want to talk about is, you know, I guess more than likely, if you're like me, you probably hunt Maximus, say, 75–80% of the time by himself after that first coon.
Yes.
Why would young people want to do that?
When you let a dog learn to do it on his own, he doesn't rely on anybody else. It's a confidence builder. It allows them to learn as much as possible. You know, I personally like hunting dogs by themselves more when they're younger than hunting them with a bunch of other dogs, because if another young dog, for example, has a bad habit, let's say of running deer or, you know, running some form of off game that you don't want to run, they're easily, they're impressionable.
Yeah, yep.
You know,
pick up bad habits really easy.
It's just like, you know, hanging out with the wrong crowd at school. If you hang out with people that get in trouble, you're going to get in trouble. You know, you stay to yourself and just do your own thing. More times than none, you're going to stay out of trouble.
Right. A lot of times from what I've seen too is, like in life when you're growing up or whatever, the lessons you learn the hard way seems to stick with you the most.
Very
and
true.
A lot of times when a pup is having to work solo, they're doing it the hard way. They ain't got nobody else showing them what to do. To me, it always comes out to be a better, well-rounded hound. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
I agree with that 110%. I mean, even now that Maximus is a finished dog, you know, he's, you know, earned several titles and whatnot. If I'm competition hunting him, I'll hunt with people a little bit from time to time just because I don't want to not hang out with my buddies. But if I hunt 5 nights a week, 3 or 4 of them nights I'm going to be hunting him by himself.
Right.
If I'm only able to hunt, say, 2 to 3 nights a week, more than likely he's going to get hunted by himself most of the time, and once every few weeks I'll hunt with some buddies or something like that.
And see, that's another fault that I had one time when I was training Hyde. I actually hunted him so much solo, almost 100% of the time, that when I finally did start hunting with some other guys, he would actually honor and back another dog, and a lot of times they were doing something they shouldn't have been doing.
Very true.
So then I went through a phase of correcting that.
Right.
So you got to find that fine balance. You don't want to hunt completely solo, but you don't want to hunt with a bunch of other dogs all the time either.
Right.
And then you get around to hunting with other dogs, you got to be careful who you hunt with and what kind of dogs they have, the person and the dog.
Very
correct?
true. Very
and why
true.
would you want to do that?
Letting the dog figure it out on his own, kind of being self-taught, it seems to stick with him better. You know, hunting with other people is fun, and there's nothing like time in the woods with your buddies.
Right.
But I believe that there has to be that learning process
until the dog is finished, is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I would say if you want to make a solid coon dog, a consistent dog, that's going to treat coons more times than he's not.
Yep.
Teach them to do it on their own. That way they don't have to rely on another dog. You'd be surprised how many dogs won't go hunting by themselves.
Yep.
You can take 4 dogs and turn them loose together, and they're all going to go.
Yep.
If you go to, say, maybe hunt with a buddy, and your dog was sick or not feeling good, and he's going to go hunt by himself, a lot of times you'll see that those dogs don't hunt the same as they do with a bunch of other dogs.
And if you're wanting to have a bunch of guys and hunt together all the time, then train your dogs that way. That's fine. It's all according to what everybody wants. But if you want to make sure that you got a solid dog that you can literally go hunt by yourself, or if your buddy just can't go one night, you still want to be true coons. This is kind of the recipe to go about doing that. Correct?
Very true.
And we're talking about other dogs too. What's some reasons that you wouldn't want to hunt with particular dogs? I want to touch on the fact that how your young dog is impressionable and the habits they can pick up on.
Well, one thing that I learned the hard way at a young age of Maximus, after I started putting him in a few competition hunts, he actually got eat up by a dog during a hunt one night.
Okay, ill dog.
So with that dog being ill, him being between 1.5 years and 2 years old, he actually was gun shy to an extent about another dog coming into the tree.
Right.
So he would either back way off, or there, I had a few times where he would just leave the tree and go tree another coon.
Right. Which,
he had to learn that, not everybody's bad, so to speak.
Yeah. And a lot of times if a dog gets jumped on, a lot of dogs can become ill.
Yeah.
That's how that gets passed on. That's a lot of times, it's not necessarily they're bred with it. They actually learn from another dog. So hunting with other dogs can be good if you know the handler, you know the houndsman, you know the hound, and it's a good, trustworthy hound that can teach your dog good things. Right. But you got to know who you're hunting with. I mean, even some guys that you hunt with are just not, good mentors. They'll actually put you off on something trashy, or they'll, they'll mess with you in the woods. And their dog's the same way. Their dogs will put your dog off on something they ought not be on, or teach them bad habits. So, yeah, it's all really good advice.
That, when I was hunting Maximus during that first, year and a half, after he started figuring out how to move a track and tree coons on his own, I was actually hunting over some game land up here above the house in Greenville, and heard a truck pull up. By this time, I had a Garmin, so Max was probably around 2 years old. He was working the track going up this creek around beside a pond, and I heard another truck pull in at the pull off up above there. Well, I panicked, pulled up there really quick to see what was going on, and I ended up, getting to know a guy better that I had met at the local coon club in Greenville.
Right.
That night. His name's Kevin Staten. He actually asked me how long I'd been hunting, and he said, do you mind if I, put my dog Judy off in there with him? And I said, no, go ahead. He just started that track. Well, during that night of walking to the tree where they treat a coon, Kevin asked me who I hunted with. I told him I pretty much hunted by myself. Come to find out he hunted by himself.
Right.
Come to find out we were actually hunting the same places, just at different times, and how we never ran into each other, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he had a pretty nice dog. Maximus was still young and green and learning, and we ended up starting to hunt together a lot more after that night. But we hunted different than a lot of people, as far as we might go somewhere and hunt. If we made a drop with them together, the first drop, the next couple of drops, we turn one dog loose this way, we turn the other dog loose that way.
Yep.
And, they were hunting initially by themselves, but we were still hunting together.
Yeah, and that's a good topic to be on. Like my buddy Kim Bishop, we're the same way. We go hunting a lot, and just because you want to hunt your dog solo don't mean you can't go with other people. Like you say, cut one dog off one side of the road and cut one dog off the other.
Yep.
You still get that camaraderie, hanging out with your buddies,
Yep.
but then when it's time to go in there with dogs, you get that reward too.
Very true.
You're not actually sacrificing training the dog or working the dog. Right. And to have to hunt by yourself and I guess be lonely or whatever. You get the camaraderie with your friends too. So.
Right. Surrounding yourself with good people and knowledgeable people, I think, is key.
Right.
I was as green as the grass when it come to owning big hounds.
Yeah.
I had owned rabbit dogs when I was in high school. You know, knew a little bit about, you know, training dogs to an extent, but I never was scared to talk to people.
Yeah.
And you can talk to people, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to take everything they say to do and use it. You might talk to 5 different people and find, you know, 5 things out of those different conversations that you want to try that works for you. And a lot of it's got to do with what works best for your dog.
Right. But you might come across something that you never thought about before that you discover is, you know, excellent advice too. So
Very true.
Don't be afraid to talk to people and go to coon clubs. And, you know, you got to be sociable, don't you?
Very true. And I mean, you don't necessarily have to be a member of a coon club to coon hunt. I would say it's valuable to be a member of a club just because, you know, networking, meeting new people, learning new things. You know, maybe you don't have somewhere to hunt and you meet somebody that, you know, you can start hunting with. And, you know, just because you meet them at the coon club doesn't mean you have to be a competition hunter. I never intended to be a competition hunter.
Yeah.
I swore up and down when I bought Maximus I would never competition hunt. And luckily, or I should say luckily, my buddy Chad talked me into entering a hunt one night, and
by happenstance, right?
By happenstance, it was a PKC hunt. Got to have 3 dogs to have the hunt. At the time, there was only 2. It was almost deadline. We ended up with a 4-dog cast before it was all said and done. But as fate would have it, Maximus won the hunt.
Yeah.
Can't say it was planned that way or anything like that. It just happened. I didn't know anything about the rule book. All I knew was to call my dog when he struck and call him when he was treed.
Well, real coon dog, that's all you got to do, right?
Yeah, it's not as complicated or as easy as that. It can be a little more complicated. You just, you know, if you're going to go that route, learn the rule book, because I got a lot of lessons, $20 at a time.
Oh yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, $20 lessons. Well, Chris, this has been very informative for people out here that's looking to get in the pup and they know they got to hunt solo. If we had to wrap this up in a summary of what they need to be prepared to do, aside from being honest with themselves and deciding whether they have the time or not to take this on, what would you say they need to be prepared to do?
Do your research as far as breeders that you're going to choose to get a pup from, buy a pup from, whatever the case is. I was fortunate enough to have a buddy of mine that owned half of a really good dog. I wanted to be different. You know, didn't want to go with the, you know, what everybody else was hunting, so to speak. So I chose a plot dog and was very blessed to own a really nice dog in the end. But part of that, I think, come from buying a pup out of proven stock, doing my part, and building that friendship, companionship bond, however you want to word it, with him, to where he knew I had his back as much as, you know, he was going to put out the effort to make me happy.
Right. And so, putting in the time, a lot of long nights and a lot of shoe leather between a pup and a true dog, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, if you're not willing to do without sleep, you know, wear out 3 or 4 pairs of boots over the course of a few years, it's you know, it's there's a lot more involved in it than just buying a dog and turning it loose.
Yeah. Time, patience, good breeding, good pup selection, and bonding with the dog.
Yep.
You can make a dog
very true
solo without any help.
I did not come from a hound family, you know, a family of houndsmen or anything like that. I've just
that's another aspect I didn't even think about that. It's not like you were raised up around hounds your whole life. So
no, I mean, I lived out in the country. You know, we had cows and yard dogs growing up, but I was kind of the oddball, so to speak, as far as, you know, wanting to chase hounds. I can remember my grandpa telling me a man that could tumble around in the dark was a little off in the head. And, you know, now he can't wait to hear the stories, because you know, there's always something fun and exciting happening.
So you can train a hound solo, and without any help, you can train yourself solo too.
Very true.
Without a big family of houndsmen backing you.
Very true.
Right?
I mean, anything you set your mind to, you can accomplish. You just got to be willing to put in the work.
That's it. If you want it hard enough, know what you got to do, and stick to it and commit to it, it can be done. So, and I also wanted to touch on the fact that here we are, first week of April 2020. Maximus has got a litter of pups on the ground, right?
Yes, sir. A buddy of mine, Troy Barber, had a nice female that was actually out of some of the same bloodline that Maximus came from, just spaced out enough to where, you know, it wasn't going to be too tight of a cross. I've really been pleased with the results I've got out of this line of dogs, so I want to stay true to that. And
you're kind of creating your own line now.
Yes, sir. Kind of going back to what guys used to do years ago, you know, breeding good dogs to good dogs, doing what, you know, some people call inbreeding, but it's really line breeding. You know, it's theoretically crossing good dogs over good dogs out of proven stock.
Right.
You get a higher percentage of the dogs, hopefully, that are going to make good dogs.
You got any pups that are available right now, or are they all spoken for?
We should have a couple of pups left. Had all of them spoken for in the beginning, but got a couple guys that said, you know, for whatever reason they weren't going to be able to get it. I get it. I understand. Yeah. Life happens.
You never know till they come to get them.
Yes, sir. I mean, it's now, if I've had several guys contact me about possibly breeding the Maximus, I'm open to that, but one thing I ask is I want to go hunt with a female.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure that whatever I'm breeding him to, they are out of, you know, good dogs to begin with, but also they perform in the woods as well.
Just being a good breeder in general. So you are planning on making future breedings?
Yes,
with
sir.
Maximus?
Yes, sir.
So I'll go ahead and I'll put his information. I'll leave his phone number down in the description of this video. Do you have an email you want me to put in there?
No, you can just look me up on Facebook, Chris Rochester.
Okay, get up with him if you're interested in this litter, or just get to know him, get in touch with him later on when he has a litter. Maybe he'll be able to get up with you and you'll be able to get a pup out of Maximus. I really like this dog. You guys know I'm a walker man, but this dog right here I've always been impressed with. I've always been impressed with Chris. Me and him, we've actually never hunted together.
No, sir.
But I've bumped into him several times, and you just kind of know when you get around the houndsman, especially when you have the same kind of mentality of how to train dog, you just know one from the other. So
yes,
it's been a real honor, and I do appreciate you sitting down, spending time with us, and I hope you guys are getting something from this video. If you will, make sure you hit like on this, tell some friends about us at Nightlife Kennels, share this all over Facebook. That way other people can learn some of the valuable lessons that we've talked about in here. And Chris, I appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Nick.
In the meantime, trade one for me.